Welcome guys to the new video. Today we will talk about known issues, common problems and fixes on Sherco bikes. I have to say right at the start that I hadn't ridden this motorcycle for 2 years. I made over 250 hours with him and I was satisfied. Of course there were problems, but I found the solutions for them. I'm not a Sherco fan, also not KTM fan. Everything I tell you is my own experience, and it doesn't have to mean that everyone will have the same problems as me. I can't understand why most KTM fans hate all other motorcycles. I have tried a lot of motorcycles brands and I can say that every motorcycle has its pros and cons. If we took the good sides of Sherco and the good sides of KTM, we would have the perfect motorcycle. But for now, every bike has problems, also KTM TPI. As for the Sherco, I can say that it is a very precise and manageable bike for every rider. With Sherco, many obstacles are easier to overcome than with KTM TPI, especially in difficult conditions in the woods when it is muddy. It gives more traction to the ground, the power is more linear and less tiring your body. But the first issue is a strange clutch. The clutch it's not as precise as on the KTM and it feels a little weird until you get used to it. Having already mentioned the clutch, there are tricks on how to fix the clutch. I will try to help you with clutch issue. Clutch plates had a design problem and were not sufficiently lubricated with oil. Sherco uses 2 companies to manufacture clutch plates. One is Adler and the other is Surflex. My Sherco was 2019 year and it used Adler clutch plates and basket which have a problem. When the engine warms up you start to lose pull and feeling for clutch. Also the clutch plates were wearing out very quickly and the clutch was overheating while hard riding, so you needed to replace the clutch every 50 hours. The solution to this problem was to put Surflex clutch plates in my engine. But you couldn't just replace them since the clutch basket isn't the same. So a modification of the Surflex clutch plates was needed. With this Surflex clutch plates it worked perfectly and there were no problems. The feel for the clutch was very good and precise, but it was necessary to change the oil every 10 hours in the gearbox. I have to say that I made over 150 hours on these clutch plates without any problems. In 2020, Adler copied the design of Surflex clutch plates and now Sherco has almost solved this very important problem. The clutch no longer overheats and does not need to be changed frequently, but I noticed the feel for the clutch and precision is better with Surflex clutch plates than with Adler. Also from the company Recluse there is a manual clutch for Sherco that works perfectly but is quite expensive. You will solve the problem completely with Recluse, because Adler is not completely perfect and you will notice clutch precision change when bike gets really hot. The Beta RR has the same problem with clutch like Sherco, while we can say that KTM managed to make a clutch that works perfectly. Sherco also had a problem with electricity. He certainly has it today. The voltage regulators were bad and had issues on the bikes very often until 2019. I never had a problem with it. Probably because my bike was a model 2019. A lot of Sherco bikes had a problem with coil and coil cable. I was lucky to not have that problem. But my friend had this problem and had to replace the coil and coil cable with a new version because his engine rattled and started to go in reverse, what was really strange. As for the carburetor and the free space next to it, that's a big problem. On my Sherco the carburetor touched the gearbox, which caused the drain bolt on the carburetor to be damaged. Also when you need to adjust jetting it is a big problem. On KTM models you can change the jetting settings without removing the carburetor from the bike. You can just turn around and get access to jetting. While on the Sherco you have to remove the carburetor because you are tight with space with the tank, exhaust and gearbox. Also, my big complaint to Sherco is that the side plastics do not fit at the tank perfect. On the new bike it looks too ugly, as if something is wrong, and it's not. Sherco came out of the factory like that. KTM paid much more attention to appearance than Sherco, but I have to say again that the same KTM has fails like bad design of the rear subframe that breaks if you fall on the rear, and in the middle of the forest you lose your seat and your rear fender. But you have to agree with me that Sherco looks really nice and that he is beautiful. Jetting in the carburetor is too rich, and the table with the settings you get in the Sherco book is not very accurate. If you use settings from the book, your Sherco will consume too much fuel and the mixture will be too rich. This can lead to problems with your spark plug starting to stop work in the middle of the woods, which is not fun, and Sherco is known for that problem. I tested other settings right at the start and found what works well for me, and honestly I never had a problem with the spark plug. I should have 42 from chart and book, but I used 38. I should also have 172, but I used 170. I also didn't use an original needle from Sherco in the carburetor I used from KTM, what is really working perfect in my terrain and my riding style. So I suggest you play around a bit and test what works best for you, because if you follow the book you will have a lot of problems with spark plugs. I can say that the Sherco engine is really good and that it can compete with KTM. It even has some parts in it that are much better made than KTM engine, so you don't have to worry about that. As for the Sherco suspension, I was satisfied, but only after the modification. CARB forks and rear shock was too hard for me. My Sherco was too tiring for my body, but for big jumps and fast riding it was ideal, but it didn't suit me. I wanted a suspension for hard enduro. After I did the modification on the suspension, I became happy and saw how much Sherco has a better suspension than KTM with WP. Of course you can also buy Sherco with WP, but CARB suspension is much better.